Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of I Love Being Sober. My name is Tim Westbrook. I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery and Camelback Integrated Health and Wellness here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people on their path to recovery. Visit camelbackrecovery.com to learn more about our treatment strategies for alcoholism, drug addiction, or mental illness. And we even offer recovery coaching so you can enjoy the freedom and happiness you've always searched for. Today, I'm here with Garrain Jones. Garrain is an author, speaker, and facilitator who is dedicated to helping you awaken your inner artist and tap into the abundance frequency. His best-selling book, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life, teaches how to lead an extraordinary life without regret. Garrain's powerful personal journey spans from a near-death experience at 4 years old, juvenile detention in his teens, a prison sentence, a music career in Los Angeles that included a record deal with Ludacris and Def Jam, homelessness, and then becoming one of the world's most sought-after personal transformation speakers. He's been featured in media worldwide, including Forms and Impact Theory. His story was told on a National Geographic documentary, Locked Up and Abroad, which shared the journey of his prison sentence in France. Garrain's Awaken the Artist Within retreat is attended by billionaires, CEOs, and industry leaders. Garrain, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Mr. Westbrook, I appreciate that intro, and I'm just like listening, going back through all of the different journeys of my life. And I'm like, damn, he's talking about me. And so grateful that I was the one that it happened to so that I could be in this space to share this story with anybody who's going to get any of these nuggets that we both drop on this show. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We met in February. Jeremy Coombs introduced us.
Yep.
And it was a pleasure to meet you. And I remember the first time we met was a pretty brief exchange, but I just remember there were similarities right there. And we've seen each other numerous times, but we're always at events. We're at the Genius Network event. And there's lots of other people. So finally, a few weeks ago, we connected at a cold plunge sauna party. And we
ended up favorite time.
I mean, it's like who would have thought? I mean, 10 years ago, I never would have thought I'd be going to cold plunge sauna IV parties. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I didn't even know what cold plunge was 10 years ago, but it happened the way that it happened. And we just had a really awesome conversation. And it was, I forgot the temperature, but it wasn't warm. I mean, it wasn't cold inside the sauna. It was like really warm. There's no ego. There's no nothing. It's just like whatever breath we had, having just a realized conversation.
Yeah, that was awesome. So I'm grateful that you made some time to spend with me on the show today. And I'm looking forward to learning more about you. I know a little bit about you, but I'm looking forward to digging in and learning more about your experience, strength, and hope. And I'm sure we're going to share a few things that might help a few people. So
absolutely.
So give me your backstory and kind of tell me, start from the beginning or wherever you want to start.
If I was to start from the beginning, we'd need probably a whole day summit. But I will tell you this, little points. I did not come from an environment that I would wish on my worst enemies. I've experienced a lot of things. A man tried to kill me when I was 4 years old and tried to put me in the community dryer. Someone saved my life. When I was 7, I almost got drowned by these three teens they were like drowning kids in the neighborhood, and I didn't ever thought I was going to be one of them. My father was murdered when I was 12 years old.
But drowning kids in the neighborhood, like were the kids dying or were
yes.
they just...
Yes. So I heard this and then you would like hear things and where I grew up, Missouri City, but you never think those type of things are going to happen to you. So I'm playing baseball in the cul-de-sac at my friend Derek Duncan's house, and some guys that were my cousin's friends that I knew of, I didn't know them well, but they were just way older, like 8 years older. And I just remember they were like, "Oh, there's some trout in the bayou." You know, damn trout in the bayou, but I didn't know. I was 7. And so it's trout in the bayou. So I'm leaving the baseball game. And I remember clearly Derek said, "Don't go, don't go." He didn't know. Nobody knew what was about to happen. But he was just mad because we're in the middle of a baseball game and I just leave. And so I leave the cul-de-sac and I remember running down there because the bayou was right next, it was on the next street. And I'm looking, there's like the trout are in there. And I was like, "I don't see the trout." They're like, "You got to look closer." As soon as they said look closer, what I now know is my intuition said, these are the people that's been killing the kids and I'm about to die. So they throw me in the bayou. At this time, I've done triathlons and half Ironmans and taught myself. I mean, I basically was taught how to swim. This time I couldn't swim at all. They throw me in the bayou. I get flipped upside down because there was these giant whirlpools there. So I get flipped upside down, and there was 3 tunnels. It's about to suck me in the tunnel. And then I end up, because I couldn't swim, I ended up just letting go. My hand falls into the water and I'm about to be sucked into the tunnel. If you get sucked into the tunnel, you're gonna die. And I'm like, literally, my life is over. My life is over. Somebody reached through the water that you couldn't see while I was underwater, grabbed my forearm, pulled me up just enough for me to grab the side of the tunnel. And I pulled and I pulled and I pulled through the current and I pulled. And then when I looked up, I saw nobody. But my life, it was whatever. It's in the frame of which I look at life. God just pulled his hand and boom, because when I looked up, there was nobody. And I just always have that in the back of my mind. And that was a pivotal moment in my story because at that moment, I stopped trusting people. Anybody who would say something, I was like, let me look into this. I don't know, because it was that moment that I broke trust with people who were older than me. Between 4 and 7, I stopped trusting people.
Wow. There's a lot of trauma.
A lot of trauma.
Wow. So you're 7 years old and you've got these, how old are these kids that threw you in the bayou?
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They had to be somewhere around 17, 18. I just remember 2 of them had mustaches. So these were older people. And
Yeah.
I'd heard kids drowning. These kids died. These dogs are getting drowned. But you never think things like that are going to happen to you. And it tried to happen to me, and my life was saved.
Did you ever see these kids again? That was it.
And what I wished would have happened, I wish the people who were around me would have made more of a fight, would put up more of a fight for seeing who did this and why they did this and things like that. And I don't know what my mom was going through at that time, or I didn't feel like anybody had my back. So I kind of just went with it. So I got used to, as I went throughout my life, not expecting somebody to have my back. So I always had to figure it out for myself.
Wow. And do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have an older brother, Anthony. He's 4 years older.
And was he around when you were 4 to 7 years old? Was Anthony around?
Anthony was always around. He actually beat the person who tried to put me in who did put me in the dryer when I was 4 years old. He actually beat that person up.
Okay. Well, that's good. So you did at least had one person that had your back.
Yeah. So I didn't know what that was at the age of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was conscious of what having my back was,
mm-hmm.
It was during that time I wish somebody would have fought for me, really had my back. I didn't feel that. It was just kind of like you kind of just go through life.
Growing up in Missouri sounds rough.
Missouri City. Yeah. You know what? It was a nice neighborhood with a bunch of bad kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to just go further, I was just in and out of trouble, didn't know how to focus. My mom was always working. At that time, my brother was too cool to hang out with me. So my mom raised me, but like there was a part of me that raised a lot of myself. And I sought out community. And the only type of community that wanted to hang out with a bad kid were other bad kids and or other outcasts. And during that time, I was in and out of juvenile, in and out of trouble, being grounded all the time, getting kicked out of school. And when I was 12 years old, two men had murdered my father. My father didn't live with us. So when my dad died, I remember saying, half of me died. And that's
did you grow up was your father around
no, my parents separated when I was 4.
Okay.
And yeah, my dad lived in South Park, Texas, which it's gentrified now, but it was one of the worst neighborhoods that you can actually live in. And so my dad lived there, and I'd go visit him like every other week. It was my week to go, and I remembered that for some reason I didn't go, and that was the week that he got murdered. After my dad was killed, and they beat him up and they left him there to die, and it was just like, man, in a pool of blood. That's when I went on a rampage. You thought I was bad before? I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about school. I didn't care about my family. I didn't care about my grades. So all of that was trauma just stored in my nervous system, and I never did anything with. So take that beginning. Now I'm in and out of jail. Now I'm smuggling drugs in and out of countries. I got busted for 6.2 kilos of heroin. And back in 2002, I got sentenced to 12 years in a French prison. And then I got out in 2.5 years. So that was a whole thing that fit the pattern of the domestication of the way in which I grew up.
Man, that's, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, as Jim Rohn says. And it's really hard to turn into a different person, which you've done, obviously. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story and how you transformed, because like you said earlier, people that are doing good things don't want to hang out with a kid that's in and out of jail.
No.
People that you want to be like, that's why it's so hard to transform. Even if somebody wants to change their life, I say, I want to change. You want to change your life, but you're in and out of prison. The people that are doing the things that you want to do don't want to hang out with you. They want nothing to do with you, as a matter of fact. Absolutely. So it's the path of least resistance is just to hang out with the people that are doing the same stuff that you were doing.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's really, really hard. And that's why one of the reasons why I believe it's so hard to get clean and sober as well, because before someone gets clean and sober, their whole life revolves around drinking and doing drugs and the addictive and alcoholic behavior, the lying, cheating, and stealing that goes along with that. So trying to get clean and sober, it's like new friends, new hobbies, new interests. They learn how to exercise, they learn how to pray, they learn how to meditate. Like everything has to change. That's the only way they have a chance. But the people that have what they want don't want what they have and don't want to hang out with them. So it's really hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I'm saying it's super hard. It's like there's a 1%, then there's the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
I'm the 1% of the 1% of the 1% who do not make it out.
Exactly. Like it's almost impossible to transform that way. So 1% of 1% of 1%. Exactly. Yeah. Most people don't get clean and sober. It's a very small percentage of people that are able to get clean and sober. And it's like, I think the statistics are, less than 10% of people make it to a year. If you make it to a year, you have a 67% chance of making it to 5 years. And if you make it to 5 years, you've got an 85% chance of making it for life. The reason being, I believe, because the only way you're able to make it to 5 years is because you've got new friends, new hobbies, new interests, new habits, like everything has changed. So it's much easier to stay on that path as opposed to transformation. The transformation part's the hard part. So, okay, so I think you left off at the prison, your little time and in prison in France. Okay, so
My little time, my little 2.5 years.
yeah. How old were you?
20 is right after Kylea was born. So I was 22. So I went in there at 22, came out at 25.
Okay. When did you realize that you wanted to change your life?
I always wanted to, I just didn't know how. I always knew I was supposed to be on TV, on the big stage, do big things in life, but I'm like, how are these people doing this? And ever so often somebody would present me a book, which I thought was the stupidest thing in the world because I didn't read books and I didn't understand the power of actually learning because I cheated my way through high school. And it wasn't until, because everything just came by accidental purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say when I was 18 years old, before I went to prison, this fashion show director, because I used to do modeling, I used to do runway with LA models. Fashion show director named Shannon Davidson gave me a book for my 18th birthday.
Wait, how did you end up doing fashion shows in LA? Because that seems like it's even if the company the company that you're hanging out with are doing bad things, it still seems like a step in the right direction, a step away from Missouri City and the worst part of Texas.
Yeah, because we're kind of jumping around because I didn't go to prison until 21. So at 18, somebody told me I should model. And so I just went to go for an audition and I got rejected and I didn't like getting rejected. So I went to another modeling agency and I got rejected maybe 9 times. And then finally I got picked up by Wilhelmina, and then I was with Runway with LA Models.
What's Wilhelmina?
Wilhelmina is one of the top modeling agencies in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, and so is LA Models. But I was with LA Models for Runway, and I was with Wilhelmina for print and commercial. And so when I joined that, I was reading this book. So let me backtrack. Shannon Davidson gave me a book called The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. Mm-hmm. So I'm reading and reading and reading and reading and reading. It's the first book I've ever read from cover to cover, something about it. And I wasn't even reading it because it was a personal growth book. I was reading it because I was a special education student with a learning disability, and I had issues with speaking. I had a speech impediment, and I used to talk like this. And I was in the slow classes. But I was so, when people would use big words and they would speak fast and they would articulate really well, I would clam up in a shell. And one day I got so frustrated that I took it out on the book. So I went inside of this book. This is Joe Polish's book. I went inside the Power of Positive Thinking and I started over enunciating. I was reading like this. Understanding this can go a long way when it comes to building rapport with. And I was just elongating my words. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was just frustrated. And something told me to do that. By the time I was done reading that book, I was talking like I'm talking right now, which is a way I'd never heard myself. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. Simultaneously, I'm reading a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. Yeah. So all of these good things started happening in my life. That's when the modeling agency came in. That's when I was attracting all these celebrities that wanted to like be in my sphere. And I'm like, yo, why is all this stuff happening? But I couldn't associate that with books that I was reading. And I was just like, yeah, I'm really lucky. I pray every day. I'm meditating. But all of this was coming from the book. So this was an unawareness. You can't change what you're not aware of. So I'm getting these results. I'm modeling for L'Oreal, Destiny's Child, jumping video. I'm on Old Navy, Tommy Hilfiger. I'm on these commercials. All this stuff is happening. I'm in the height of my career. I stopped reading the book. My ego, my pride, I knew I was the shit. People were telling me how good I was looking, and I was letting those words feed into my psyche, and I stopped reading the book. I didn't know that leaders are learners and that you should keep reading. So when I stopped reading, then the weeds of my past, the weeds came and overtook my mental garden and brought me right back into the state I was before I started reading, which was negative, cynical, gossipy, prideful, all those things. And just as fast as I got it, I lost it. I'm chasing a girl in Europe, and all of a sudden I find my way, even while having billboards and music videos, but no money was coming in because they wasn't paying on the spot.
Yeah.
I find my way doing a job for quick cash, and that ended up doing some smuggling drugs from one country to another. I did that route 7 times. They paid me 4,000 pounds every time I did the route. And each pound at that time was 2.3 US dollars. So it was almost $9,000 7 times within 2 months. I'd never saw that fast cash. It was like Bitcoin before Bitcoin was even here.
Right.
So that, and on the 8th time, I got caught.
Whew.
6.2 kilos of heroin, the most anti-drug person you will ever meet. Never had a sip of alcohol, not even until this day. That was busted for drugs, that was associated with the mafia. Who I was working for was working for someone else who was working for the big person. And I became the person that took the rap for it all because I wasn't going to snitch on that and have all of that threaten my family. So I took it, and I was on the front page of the newspapers as the member of the American Connection. It was so wild. I'm like, I had it all, and I lost it all because of my selfishness.
You were working the front lines. That was like the most risky position. And how did you feel about that personally, that you were smuggling drugs from, across the border?
Here's the thing. When you focus on something so much, it blocks you and blinds you from everything else. It's like when your president that you vote for can do no wrong, and they've done a lot of wrong, you'll like almost excuse the actual wrong things. Be like, no, I'm voting all this color. Everybody on here is all doing right. And I'm like, yo, this is the stupidest thing that you can do without actually understanding. It's like blind choosing. So I did the same thing with, okay, I'm just going to drive this car because no one ever said what it was. I just knew that it was doing something bad.
Yeah. You knew, but you didn't want to ask any questions.
And all I was doing was focused on the money. So I was blindly following the money, not thinking about the consequence, not thinking about my actions of what I was doing. I didn't think about any of that stuff till I got caught. And I was like, what the fuck?
You were just thinking about the upside. You weren't thinking about the downside. Like Dr. Alan Barnard says, you want to do things that have high upside with little to no downside, little to no risk. What you were doing was obviously risk, and the consequences of the risk were pretty big, pretty massive. But the one thing that I think of is you stopped reading the power of positive thinking. You stopped on that path. And it's just like fitness, spiritual fitness, positive thinking. It's like any kind of fitness. If you stop going to the gym, if you stop working out, if I stop working out, if I stop running, biking, if I stop doing yoga, if I stop doing all the things that I'm going to lose it. Like people think that, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to get in shape. And then once I'm in shape for the rest of my life. No, that's not everybody knows that's the stupidest thing. That doesn't happen. You're not physically fit for the rest of your life. You have to continue. And if you don't continue, then you end up back where you were. And that's what happened.
Listen, that is because I now know people treat change like it's a diet and not a lifestyle.
Right.
And so I just kind of went back to the same behaviors that I was doing before. Well, life is not happening to you, it's responding to you.
Yeah.
And without me knowing that, so my life, and I was living a bigger life, but then I went back to doing the same things that I did before while trying to maintain all of this stuff that was going on. I'm on covers, magazines, like commercials, music videos. All of a sudden, I get greedy and I stop reading, and then pride and ego. And next thing you know, I'm in prison. Wait, what? It made sense to nobody. They're like, Garrain? What? Because they didn't know the dark. They didn't know the dark part of me, the dark side of me. And everybody has it. Everybody has something. And that part of me, I allowed to get the best of me. So therefore, it was almost like a universal order needed to stop me on my tracks before it got even worse. So here I am in prison with billboards in Times Square. What am I doing? What did I do? I just had a daughter. I have a daughter that's 21 and I have a daughter that's 1. Kylea was just born. So I'm just having a daughter. Billboards, music videos, commercials out. I'm in magazines. Now I'm in prison. So I'm like, what am I doing? That was the first time I thought about the consequences. And when I found out what was in those Congo drums, I'm like 6.2 kilos of heroin. What was I thinking? And I'm in prison. And all of this is going on.
What was prison like in France? What part of France were you in?
I was in Lille, Lille.
Mm-hmm.
And
where's that relative to like Paris?
4 hours. I mean, it's 4 hours away because I got caught at a border.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 4 hours away, and I was in 2 different prisons, Longness prison and Lille. Mm-hmm. And what was it like?
Well, first off, before we get there, which country were you trying to get into?
I was traveling from the UK. I was traveling from, because all the routes that I did, the 7 other times, was from the UK on the ferry to Rotterdam.
Okay.
This time, they wanted me to come into France, and then you go from France and then get to the border. The UK, the border that's the UK, that gets you into the UK. So I drove from France. So it was in that long drive. Once I got to the border, they didn't bring me into the UK border because I couldn't get into the UK. It was in where the border of France and UK meet.
Okay, and why did they stop you? Why were you not able to get through?
Well, the theory is the 7 times that I went from the UK to Rotterdam, I was always using the cover of my magazine. They were like, what are you in town for? I was like, oh, I got a photo shoot, some random thing. They're like, oh, that's really cool. And they let me through. So it just kept working and working and working and working. I was like, man, just one more time. Because there was part of me that wanted to stop.
Yeah.
It was that greed of money. I was like, just one more time.
Easy money.
Just one more time. It's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in France. And then all of a sudden, everything in my spirit said, stop. The tire got on a flat. Something else happened. It was like the universal order was saying, stop, and getting louder and louder and louder. And then when I got caught, they were like, so what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I got a photo shoot. And I showed them my magazine. They said, stop right here. We need an x-ray. We need to look in your car. They opened up the car, and then there was Congo drums. They were like, what's in the Congo drums? And I was like, I had never been through this particular process before. And I was like, oh, this is my friend's car. I'm a musician. So things just weren't adding up.
Yeah.
And then there was like, what's your friend's name? And I was like, shit, D. So I'm just making stuff up. And they x-ray those Congo drums. And as they x-ray the Congo drums, you could see these little bricks. And I'm like, boom, as soon as they saw that, they put the handcuffs on me. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Ah. So they had to crack open the Congo drums and they pulled out these little yellow bricks one by one. And I was like, yo, my life is over. It's literally over. I'm never going to see my daughter again. Wow, my life is over. That's it. Because I'm thinking in terms of like America, where they give you like 50 years and I'm like, yo, my life is over. So here I am in a holding cell for 5 days. They barely give me any water. I don't get to shower or brush my teeth. They give me one square of sandwich, and they're trying to starve me to get me to confess who I was working for. So I'm looking at surveillance footage of me hanging out with those people. And they were like, this is you. I'm like, no, it's not.
How did they get the surveillance footage?
Because I had been hanging out with those guys at clubs. They had been surveilling those guys for a long time. This was a whole big case. I know.
So were they already expecting you to come across the border?
So this is to answer your question. This is to answer your original question. The theory is, once I got busted, all of the other people at the other stations left their post and came over to mine. I think whenever they left their post, there are so many other people that went through. And here's what's funny. I ended up getting out in 2.5 years, and we're going to get really deep into that story. There's several ways you can get out in 2.5 years. You can be an informant and snitch. You can get out on good behavior, which that's unheard of in a French prison because they just don't do that. Not like that. Or the way that I did it. It is so. Yeah, go ahead.
What's a French prison like? I mean, they have some of the worst prisons in the world. I don't know. They have that show on TV, that documentary. It's like, these are the worst prisons in the world, and they're like in the Philippines and wherever they are. How would you say? I mean, is it like, for example, you don't want to go to jail in Mexico? That's what I've heard, anyways.
Yeah,
I've never been to jail there, but I've heard you don't want to go to jail in Mexico. Is France one of those prisons like in the U.S.?
I will tell you this. Most prisons, they do not want you to rehabilitate. It's part of some other system that's going on. When I was in that prison, I felt like they actually cared that I became a better person.
Wow.
Okay. I don't know how I could have got into the one prison where people actually care that you become a better person. And I will tell you this. If it hadn't have been for me being a black man with tattoos at the time I lived in New York, from New York, I can't imagine what would have happened to me. But because I was what they wanted to be, because in their mind, I'm in there for drugs. In their mind, I'm like a gangbanger, whatever. I'm a black man, tattoos, hip hop. So whatever, their whole style of thugging and gangster is patterned after America. So somehow I fucking lucked up and ended up in a prison where they just wanted to be my friend, to say I'm friend with the American gangster. And I played the fucking part. played the part. Black man, tattoos, coming in from New York, busted for 6 kilos of heroin. Oh my God, he's dangerous. I wasn't fucking dangerous unless you freaking mess with my family. But I acted dangerous while I was in there. And while I was in there, the most gangster people that killed people to get in there, that killed people while they were in there, all they wanted was to be my friend and learn more about America. 50 Cent, Snoop Doggy Dogg, Wu-Tang Clan. I'm like, what the? So I ended up in the luckiest situation. I did get into a couple of fights later on, but as far as my overall, it wasn't any different than the lifestyle that I grew up. I was never in a gang, but I grew up around gangs and I hung out with gangs. I seen shit. I seen people murdered right in front of my face. That was nothing new to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the stuff that I saw wasn't anything that I hadn't already seen before. So I can easily adapt to a way in which I grew up.
Okay.
So me being an American, a black American with tattoos was the first time I ever felt significant in my life, because growing up where I was, there was like racism and people say like little undertone shit and all this stuff that I had to work 10 times harder just to be seen because of my skin color. I felt every bit of that. Not in that prison. It was the first time I felt significant for my color and how am I looking at my appearance. I'm like, this shit is so backward.
Right.
So I had 2.5 years in the incubation of significance that I've never felt in my life. So there was that. I basically rehabilitated myself. I stopped using my right hand. For some reason, I started using because I had to find a way to keep stimulating my brain. And I started using my non-dominant hand to do everything, which I didn't even know was operating a different part of my brain. I started becoming more creative and building random shit. Amazing what the mind does with all this time. But what I wanted to share with you is how I got out. Because this is going to tie into your original question with the borders. So we're watching Shawshank Redemption. And Anthony Dufresne says, they can take anything they want away from me, but they can't take away my mind. And in that moment, I knew why I was in prison. I'm like, oh my God. Because when I was free, I used to say, I feel like I'm in prison inside of my own body. I feel like I'm so far away from where I'm supposed to be. And I manifest being so far away from where I was supposed to be. And I said, but if I can keep myself in prison, well, then in that case, I'm free. What would a free person do? And in that moment, Garrain, a little voice inside, everything you used to love to do when you were a kid. I used to love painting. I used to love singing. I used to love motivating people. I used to love running. So I started doing all those things. I would sing and the inmates would feel free. I would do my portraits and I would give them to inmates. They start crying. And I just wanted them to feel what I was already feeling.
Right.
And then all of a sudden a little voice says, Garrain, run. You love to run. When nobody else was running. I saw fights, drug deals, stabbings. They were walking out in the yard every single day for 1 hour in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. All of a sudden I start running. 30 days, 60-something inmates running with me. Less fights, less drug deals, less stabbing. And I felt more free in prison than I ever felt while I was free in my life. And
wow.
In losing my freedom, and to close this out, in losing my freedom, I discovered my freedom. And when I felt free, magically, out of nowhere, they called me into the office 2.5 years into my sentence. And they said, we retested the drugs, which they had no reason to retest the drugs. They tested them 3 times already, 6.2 kilos of heroin every single time. But I felt free, which means there was a different feeling inside. We retested the drugs. 90% was fake. And for the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home.
Wow.
So to answer your question, if I had all of the fake stuff and
Yeah.
all the people come over to the pillars, then that means whoever drove through had all the real stuff. And I
Right.
was guinea pig.
Wow. Okay. So you basically, what I hear, if I'm understanding correctly, you were set up.
Yeah, there's two things. Either I was set up or the laws that govern all of this was matching my frequency of belief in myself, of love within myself, of creativity within myself, of freedom within myself. And how I see life is the outside is the physical manifestation of what's going on inside the brain that's connected to the heart. And when I became a free person to myself, life had to match.
Wow. So let's move on to the next question. That's a
I know
great
people are
story.
listening to this. It's like, how do you move on from that?
Right. I think of so many things when I hear that story. I think of my own life, which I'm sure there's other people that are listening thinking about their own lives. And it's like, where did my life match what was going on inside?
I mean, it's happening right now. And I'll tell everybody, you don't have to have gone to prison like I do to be in prison inside the relationship you know you don't want to be in and you stay in it, or in that 9 to 5 job that pays you less than your value. And then you know you don't want to be in it and you stay in it. That's actually prison. And if you literally look at your life, the results of your life, it is in direct correlation to your belief in yourself, your level of selfless service, the love of yourself, and how you see your life. It is a direct correlation.
Yeah. Whatever I believe I can or can't do, it's true. It's like our whatever's in our mind. And I think just because we're talking about you going to prison, when I was 19 years old, I got in trouble for doing a beer run, and I'm not going to get into the story, but I basically got charged with a felony, and I got charged 60 or 90 days in jail. And I was in jail. I got in a fight, so I ended up in the hole. And I remember the guards saying, "Okay, we'll see." Well, first off, they said after 5 days in the hole, they said roll it up, and they let me go free, which I had just gotten into a fight. I would and somehow they told me to roll it up and get out of here. But I remember the guards saying, "Okay, we'll see you next time." I'm like,
Ooh,
I'm like, I- I'm never coming back here. And that was my belief. And I think that most people that are in and out of prison, it's their lifestyle, it's what they're used to. And the path of least resistance is to sabotage themselves, even if they're on a good path and end up back in prison. So whatever it is that you're doing, even if you're on a good path, the opportunity to sabotage yourself or get tripped up or whatever is like it's gonna happen. And it's like, how do we stay on the path?
look, life comes in cycles. And I also look at life like a video game. You're playing Super Mario Brothers, and at the end of the round, you face a specific boss. If you beat that boss, you go to the next level. And if you lose to that boss, you stay at the same level and you got to face the round again. Even at the end of the school year, you got to take a test.
Mhm.
If you fail that test, you stay in the same grade. If you pass it, you go to the next level.
Right.
Our life somehow is designed the same way. And so those things that come, oh, why is this happening to? Maybe that's your test. Maybe that's King Koopa at the end of the round. And maybe you keep approaching King Koopa or your final exam the exact same way as you always done. But if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so by passing the test of resistance, which is unlocked, resistance is only unlocked to the equal of the equivalent of resistance is, oh, I want to retire my mom. That's a big dream. It's a big vision. Okay. It unlocks the equal of its resistance that has been directly sent to test you to see if what you want is what you really want. And if you grow through the resistance, it shapes you and molds you so that you can be the type of person that sustains the capacity of whatever it is that you're calling into. It's like, if you want to work with me and I've run 64 miles over a mountain one time, you're like, hey, I just want to run a marathon. Questions I'm going to ask you is, do you just want to cross the line? Do you want to compete? Do you want to get top 50? You want to get top 25? Do you want to get top 5? Do you want to win? Do you want a world record? Based off of what you say, that is specifically how I'm going to customize your programming on how you're training. The universal order works the exact same way. So, but just people may not know what that resistance is connected to. It's connected to something that you ask for, which is one of the main reasons why you don't get it, because you keep on failing the same test over and over and over. But once you know it's a test, you approach it differently with gratitude. And what I do is I say, thank you, coach. Thank you for my test today. And then I learn and I lean into it. Make my old hard, my new easy. And I lean into it. That's where I get focus, grit, staying power, and the ability to withstand hard things over a long period of time, because I lean into the areas of discomfort. And through that gives me the durability to remain calm and peaceful and joyful over a long period of time, because that's on the other side of the resistance.
This also makes me think of when we were in the sauna, we were talking about this being worthy, believing that I'm worthy.
Yeah.
So you're faced with the resistance and it's like, I'm worthy of this. And I know for myself personally, I sabotaged my life. I mean, like so many times where I built myself up, I was on a different path, and then I crashed and burned, because to your point, we're going to be tested. And when I was tested, I believe that I fell apart and I crashed and burned. And that happened to me so many times. And it's believing that I'm worthy is one of the things that has to happen for me, and I believe for everybody, in order to pass a test and continue on the path that they're on, whatever the path is and wherever it is that they want to go. So what is artist power and where did the concept come from?
Well, artist power, the artist is the little kid inside of all of us. Before life stripped all of your powers away, stripped away your creativity, your belief, your energy, your passion. And this is what life does, the domestication of our society, our government, commercials, entertainment. It just strips away. And you see this little kid that says, I wanted to be a superhero or the president of the United States. And now they're working a 9-to-5 job out of security and fear, just to call another man or woman a boss. So the artist is the little kid inside of you. And I know how to teach people how to safely tap back into that energy, which unlocks a power. And that's what artist power is. It's the same thing that's inside of what makes the flower grow. That what produces fruit on trees is the same of what's inside of you. And when you can tap into that power, you can alchemize and transmute that energy any place that you want. And you can produce more intimacy, the abundance frequency, station, intuitive, your intuition, and inside of business, it creates embodiment, composure, creates this sense of magnetism where you can walk into any room and people is like, who is that? I need to meet this person, without you ever having to open your mouth. There's a portal that wants to be open. But if you look at yourself like a water hose, and it's just a container for information going through, for water to go through, and then you have a bunch of knots in that water hose, but you have 1,000 pounds of pressure of water, and then you turn it on full blast, little drops of water is going to go through. What I do is I teach people how to untie all those knots so that whatever wants to come through is coming through and it's flowing. Information is flowing, creativity is flowing, money is matching that's the energy that it's matching the flow that's coming through you, because we're divine channels for information. So when you can learn how to be a vessel, you can tap into a wisdom that's beyond your current knowing, because 400,000 people, your ancestors, died just so you can be here. You don't think their DNA isn't encoded inside of you. So just maybe their skills could be passed down to you. And so artist power is exactly what that is. It teaches people how to come back home to their most authentic state. They become more confident. They become more self-expressed. They tap into their creative capacity, and they take more risks in life without overcompensating and putting on a mask to hide from the insecurity of not really honoring your true self. And how I came about that was in a deep meditation. And I just asked, I said, use me to communicate a message to humanity for the reason why I'm here. And a voice 20 minutes later said, Garrain, it's been a part of everything that you've done. Look back at all the stuff that you did that nobody taught you to do. But every time you did it, good things would happen. And I used to do runway, and then I taught runway, and the people were more confident, self-expressed, and they took more risks. And then I worked with new faces at LA Models, and I worked with, they were ages 13 through 18, 6-hour workshops. Nobody taught me how to do it. It was just something already inside of me. These people wanted to learn how to be on camera and all this other stuff. And when I was done with them, more confident, more self-expressed, and they took more risks. As a speaker, someone who had a speech impediment, who is one of the top speakers in the world right now. I've spoken in over 76 countries all over the world, impacting millions of lives on transformational change. When I work with people, when it comes to speaking and embodiment and presence, they're more confident, self-expressed, and they take more risks. And so that little voice inside said, Garrain, it's always been there, but you've never tapped directly into the source of it. You'll be at a party and somebody will say, what do? You're like, I'm a transformation coach. But then you'll pick up a drum or you'll start singing. Next thing you know, it'll wake up something inside of all of them. And next thing you know, 200 people are dancing and singing. Garrain, lead with the art, then take them to transformation. And I was like, oh my God. And from there, Awaken the Artist Within came in, which was my retreat. 2 weeks later, it was sold out. And when I tell you sold out, it was like, damn, that went from zero to $150,000 in 2 weeks without me doing paid ads or getting a major celebrity to put anything out there. Then I created a mastermind and then another retreat and doubled the price. That was $750,000. That was only 2 months later. Then I created another retreat. And then I did a leadership course because some top-tiered leaders was like, no, there's something different about the way that you coach and facilitate. And I want to learn whatever those skill sets are, because I've been leading leaders who create and develop leaders for over a decade. And, you know, there's just something that comes with time and beating on your craft every single day. Well, those top-tier leaders came into my high-ticket leadership program, and it just kept growing. And then I got my first $300,000 client, which is, you know, a very extraordinary human who is my protege for an entire year. And all of this came within a 6.5-month time span of me being my authentic self and allowing little Garrain to lead with his ideas and allowing big Garrain to be the structure and the discipline to move this ship forward. And that's how Artist Power came about, which is my company. And we just launched the membership portal a week ago, and there was 700 memberships. And it's $1,000 a membership, 700 memberships in one day. And this is going to revolutionize how humans are being inside of their own body within the next 40 years. And this is the seed process. And so I'm just grateful to be on the right side of change.
I love that. I love that. So when did you first start the path of the artist power and awaken the artist within. Is it 6.5 months? Is that?
Yeah, well, basically what happened was I went to the Welcome Back Joe at the Genius Network, and there was so much information. When I get too much information, I end up doing nothing. It was just so much information, great
Right.
information. But then I got to journaling. And then on the day where I was about to leave, and I was working with the amazing Sheila, who she works in strategy and everything. She helped pull all this stuff out of me and had all these notes from Genius Network. But on the night that I was about to leave, I was sleeping, and then all of a sudden I woke up, and then I was like, something told me to go into deep meditation. And that's when Awaken the Artist Within was birthed. But I did the first retreat in June.
Okay. Love it. And what are some of the ways that society has made adults into deteriorated children?
Well, ultimately, I'm not going to give society that much power. I would say the kid forgot about themselves unknowingly. But I will tell you this, even in our schools, they don't teach us in our public school system. They don't teach us about money, about emotional intelligence, on how to navigate life. We learn about bisesquicentennial and square roots. I've still never used a square root since I learned square roots. There's so many things that I learned in school that does zero for the life that I'm living now. And I think what's being taught, how it's being taught, and the fact that teachers, for the level of responsibility that they have for the next generation, do not get paid nowhere near enough when they are raising our children. They don't get paid near enough. So now you got these people that's like, now I don't want to be a teacher. They don't get paid enough. So we get the bottom barrel of education, of the energy. It was like, well, this is the only job I can get for teaching. But if teaching was actually, you're getting paid $100,000 to be an educator, but not at the college level. I'm talking about the elementary school level, because you're domesticating the future generations. Kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, like literally you're molding their brains for the next. So I say all that to say the way the system is designed for humanity, I would say it's intentional, is not designed for humans to win at life. Just look at what's going on in the world. Everybody came through this system. So I needed to learn to create a new system. And that's how my life changed, because I sought out all the things that I could have learned as a kid.
I'm just thinking about environment and the environment that we grow up in, and the teacher is the leader of that environment for however many hours a day, for a good part of the day for kids. And that teacher, if the teachers can do a better job of creating the right environment, then that's going to help people, which I believe. So you have working parents, you have two working parents, it's really hard for them to play a big part in creating the environment for their children, which is a problem, obviously.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what does it mean to be authentic?
If you watch a bird and it's just the bird doesn't even know it's a bird. It's simply using everything that's already inside it with it, all of its inner facilities, everything. And it just takes a flight. If a bird were to try to be an alligator, you would see how life would be difficult, because it wasn't designed to be an alligator. Each one of us were designed to be something that was already inside of us. But most people are so busy trying to live a life that is inauthentic to their true nature. And that's what makes life difficult. The bird trying to be an alligator. There's something already inside. There's dreams already inside. There's goals already inside. There's a passion already inside. There's a voice already inside. There's love already inside. And we seek out there to try to fill up what only we can give to ourselves, which is honoring your true self.
I like that. I think of, we look out and we're like, oh, I need to do this because I want this. And that's the bird trying to be an alligator. It's like, I'm not being true to my authentic self because I think I need to do, oh, well, this guy is doing this and he looks happy. So I'm going to do what he's doing. And maybe that will bring me happiness, which really we all just want fulfillment. And if I'm authentic, I attract people into my life that should be in my, I mean, it's the whole thing.
Yeah, I would say when you plug into nature, it's like when you are being your most authentic self, it's like human nature.
Mm-hmm.
So when you align yourself with nature, you benefit from nature's resources. Nature always restores itself. It's always duplicating. Nature is strong. Nature is patient. Nature has capacity. And if you just look outside, look at the trees, they could present themselves as the greatest mentor ever. They're rooted into the ground. They're grounded. And they give and they receive. And it contains so much healthy nutrients that it provides energy and oxygen for others. The same applies to this tree. So when we align ourselves with human nature, we benefit majorly. I'm going on 44, and age don't make you old. It's when you let your life beat you down. That's what makes you old. When you're in relationships and jobs you don't want to be in, and you're just like, you carry resentment and you don't know how to forgive, and your spirit can't hold that weight. Your spirit starts to sag. I'm here to remind everybody that unless you release the hot air balloon, it's not going to leave the ground. So you have the opportunity to tap into something big, and that something big, it just happens to be you.
Do you have any tips or tactics people can use to become more authentic? Would you agree? Well, first off, would you agree there's lots of people out there that are not authentic?
Absolutely.
People are walking around trying to be something they're not. People are walking around trying to make other people happy, right? That's codependency. What are some tips or some tactics people can use to become more authentic?
Well, I'll share with you this. I don't blame the people who are trying to be something that they're not. There's just not enough examples to see what the real thing is. So if you can see it, like once I saw somebody with a Letterman's jacket, I'm like, I want that. Right. And it's it's like leading by personal example. So I would say when you do what you love, so remember when you were a little kid and you used to love to do something, you used to love to run or read or write or whatever, for no other reason than to just serve your heart. Don't try to wrap a business around it. Just, wow, I just gave everybody else my power, but I've never actually intentionally invested time with myself and my heart. I would say to start there from very basic. I mean, there's so many powerfully big worded esoteric things I could talk about, but I'll say you need to start somewhere and start in your heart.
Amen.
So I would say find one thing. If you just happen you used to love to dance when you were a little kid, sign up for a dance class today. No matter how ridiculous you look, sign up for a beginner dance class today and do it once a week. And in 90 days, I want you to literally connect the dots looking backwards of the little changes that have been made because of you tapping into the authenticity of what's always been in there in the deepest reaches of your heart. I would say 1, start there.
Yeah.
Number 2, affirmations. And we'll just keep them real simple. I do affirmations and I leverage it with something that I do every day, which is I brush my teeth every single day and every single night. So every time I'm in the mirror, before I brush my teeth, I'll say things like, I am a powerful force of love and freedom, inspiring greatness within myself and others. I am a powerful force of love and freedom, inspiring greatness within myself and others. And I'll be telling myself who I am. Because if you don't tell yourself who you are, you'll live a life where you'll be what everybody else tells you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I affirm, this is who I am. This is what I'm up to, and here's where I'm going. And I've literally got a selling job on yourself every day to remind yourself of who you are. That's number 2. So the mirror affirmations. And number 3, super important. I want you to write a letter with your dominant hand from your big self to your little self. And if you feel that there's a part of you that was left from when you were a little kid, I want you to apologize to abandoning that little kid. I am so sorry that I left you behind. Here's what I'm committed to moving forward. And then when you're done with that letter, on another sheet of paper, switch to your non-dominant hand. And then write a letter from your little self to your big self. And whatever wants to come out, whatever emotions you stuffed down. When I first did this, curse words came out, you effing left me, whatever. And then once I released all of that and said what I really wanted to say, for some of you, it might be like, thank you so much. That's all I wanted to hear. When that happens, I want you to allow your body to process whatever emotions it needs to process. And then you should be good to go to start your trek in being your genuine, authentic self, unapologetically, without harming people or having an ego or pride anywhere in your vicinity. It's just you and your authentic nature.
I love that. And for anybody out there that's willing to go through that exercise, it's like what's on it. It sounds simple. It sounds like not a big undertaking, but I would imagine that what's on the other side of it is your authentic self, your true authentic self.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything that you wanted me to ask you today that I did not ask?
No, honestly, it was designed specifically perfect. And I would say the one question, if I was Mr. Tim Westbrook, that I would ask Garrain is, what is your, it seems like life is flowing for you and all these things are going great. What's a difficulty in your life right now? And here's my answer. Being a present, loving, extraordinary father and husband to baby Soul and my wife Blair, and leaning in while creating all of this extraordinary stuff on the outside and remaining calm and peaceful during the process. It is the most difficult container to be in and so rewarding. That is my new challenge as my daughter's 1. And then my wife is, there's, you just figure it out because it matters that much. So that is my challenge. And people always said you can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, you can if you're willing to do the extra cardio. And so I'm willing to do the extra cardio to have my cake and eat it too.
So what is the cardio?
The cardio is the inner work. It's the personal growth. It's the, oh, I read a book for 30 minutes a day and I'm listening to audiobooks when I wake up, when I work out, when I drive, before I go to bed. Like my car is my university on wheels. I'm in masterminds. I'm in workshops. I have a spiritual mentor. I have a sex coach. I have a money coach. I have a business coach. Everywhere where I have a coach has 10x. And so I invest in me becoming a better version of myself so I can collapse time. That is the work that I know most people won't do because they'd rather buy rims, or they'd rather invest in this house rather than investing in this house.
Right.
So that's the ROI, return on income. This is the ROI, return on impact.
Right.
So that's the work.
Where we spend our time and our money, it's all an investment. It's always an investment. And I'm a huge believer in masterminds and coaches. I mean, we're in Genius Network together.
Yep.
And recently you went from 25K to 100K, which is a huge step. And I admire you for that. And it's just another level. And I loved the way that we won't get into it right now.
Yeah.
But I loved your answer, and it really got me thinking about it too. It's like, okay, who do I want to be? What am I worthy? And how much impact do I want to make? What can I do to make a bigger impact? And my girlfriend and I just hired a relationship couple as our coaches.
Yeah. We've had it since we were.
Yeah, I mean, I need somebody else to tell me what to do. I have a running coach. I just did a half marathon. I'm going to do another half marathon because I just think I can do a little bit better. I need somebody else to tell me what to do. I need a coach. I need a mentor. I need somebody besides me. No matter how smart I am or how smart I think I am or how good I get in any one area, if I want to continue growing, I have to continue doing the work.
Absolutely.
So one more question for you. Tell me about your morning routine.
So, well, right now it's changed because Baby Soul's mom she's at Joe Dispenza for the next 6 days. So right now I'm not leaving the house and leaving my daughter here. But
Right.
Typically I wake up anywhere from 4 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. and I go and run. There's no lights on my street, so it's typically I hear all kind of animal sounds and things,
Yeah.
but I turn that into a training. I alchemize that fear, and then I'm like running, and I become one with nature. So I go, but here's the thing: I don't go running. I use the running to train my breath, my life force. So every 3 steps, I'm breathing in my nose, and then I breathe out my nose. So I train that into my system. So when I can put myself through hills and extreme situations, and I can always have a 3 count breath through my nose and out my nose. Now, when things outside that would normally get me taken out, I just go right back to the thing that I'm training, which is. So I do that.
3 steps in, how many steps out?
3 steps in, 3 steps out, 3 steps in, 3 steps
even.
Through my nose every time. Nothing comes out of my mouth.
Okay.
So I do that for 5 to 10 miles. At first, I couldn't barely even do a mile, but I just kept getting better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And I realized that the world started slowing down the more and more I was training my life force. So I have this whole training called life force training. And then as soon as I'm done with my run, I have my cold plunge set for 36.6 degrees. So I'll go in there for anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes. And as soon as I get in, it becomes another training. So I don't do it. As soon as I get in, I literally train myself to have the same breath pattern that I had when I'm running. So I go 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. And I'll do that the entire time. And then I'll get out. We got the sauna. Do the same thing. 2, 3, 2, 3. So now I just put myself through all these different extremes, but the whole time I'm just working on my life force training. And this is how I stay calm through all of this random shit that gets these people all bent out of shape. They're like, how are you just so calm? They're like, how are you not cutting your prices in half because of the recession? I'm like, what recession?
Mm-hmm.
My whole life was a recession. This shit ain't new to me. I just learned how to choose a different energy. Now, I train my life force every morning, and you don't have to learn how to play the Super Bowl while you're in the Super Bowl, because you have been training in preseason and postseason. And then once you get to the Super Bowl, because of how you're training, that's where your ring comes from. I do the same thing with life.
Yeah. Love that. It's just like doing Iron Man. It's not about Iron Man. It's about the journey. It's running when you don't want to run. It's focusing on your breath. It's going in the cold plunge when you don't want to go in the cold plunge. It's all the things.
Yeah.
So how can people learn more about you, find out more about your retreats and so forth?
So you can go to my website, GarrainJones.com, or you can go to Instagram, Garrain.Jones. My retreats, they're called Awaken the Artist Within. I have anywhere if there's people, billionaires, people that sold their company for 800 million, and then some other people that are just new to entrepreneurship. The through line is people want real shit, and they want it inside of themselves. But when they see it, like the one billionaire at a party saw me drumming, he was like, I want that. I didn't know he was. I'm like, you want what? You want me to teach you how to drum? He's like, no, I want what's inside of you that allows you to just stand up and be yourself. And so my Awaken the Artist Within retreats is some of the most powerful retreats in the country. My next one is in May, and it's most likely going to be in Sedona. And I'm doing leadership programs and masterminds, and we got a whole artist power community outreach program. We're working with kids and protecting the heart and arts of kids and humanity. And we're just doing great work in the world, and everything you can find online. And I'm excited to serve and support you and lead with you if that's the route that you want to take. Just remember, whatever work you're doing in the world, ask yourself this: am I on the right side of change? Because that is what you're going to think about on your deathbed. I promise you. Was I on the right side of change? Thank you so much for having me on, Tim Westbrook.
Love that. Garrain, thank you so much. Okay, that does it for our time with Garrain Jones. And before we end this episode, I want you to go to the review section on iTunes or comment section of YouTube. Type in the one thing that resonated with you that you heard today. Every comment counts, and what you share could resonate with someone else that's struggling and potentially save their life or keep them on the right path. So go ahead and share the one thing that resonated with you in the review section. It'll take just 60 seconds out of your day. But what you share could not only save you, but it could also save someone's life. Okay, that does it for this episode. I'm Tim Westbrook here with Garrain Jones. I hope that our paths cross again in the next episode of I Love Being Sober.
We did it.
If you found this video to be of value, be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos, leave a comment if you have a question, if you've got something to say. Camelback Recovery provides treatment services for people struggling with mental health, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism. So if you or someone you know is struggling, be sure to reach out to us. You can go to our website, camelbackrecovery.com, or our information is in the comment section below. And we provide everything from detox, inpatient, outpatient treatment, sober living, recovery coaching, sober companion services. So either we'll be able to help you or we'll be able to refer you to people or treatment centers that might be a better fit. So I will see you in the next video.